There's a moment in every woman's life where she realizes she's been starving for love and trying to survive off crumbs. She keeps showing up, putting in effort, waiting for consistency, for a text back, for affection that doesn't vanish overnight. And slowly, painfully, she begins to see that she's been holding onto potential, not reality. You were loyal to an illusion, hoping that one day he'd wake up and treat you the way you deserve. But deep down, you knew. You knew your value wasn't being seen, your love wasn't being nurtured, and your heart wasn't safe in his hands. So you reached a powerful, terrifying moment you let go. Not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring more about yourself. That choice to stop settling is where everything begins to change. When you walk away from someone you once cared deeply for, people assume you've gone cold, but the truth is, you've never been more alive. For the first time in a long time, you're not shrinking yourself to make someone else comfortable. You're not lowering your standards just to be chosen. You're not begging for time, attention, or clarity that should be freely given. You're standing taller, even if your knees are shaking. That moment of choosing yourself sends shockwaves, not just into your life, but into his too, because now the game has changed. You're no longer the woman who waits, you're the one who walks. When you stopped reaching out, when you stopped chasing, when you stopped accepting emotional breadcrumbs, you became unpredictable, and unpredictability breeds curiosity. He used to know exactly where to find you on the other end of the text, available at his convenience, ready to forgive again. But now, you're not there. That silence is deafening. That absence is haunting. You see, people start valuing what they can no longer access. The moment you chose peace over chaos, dignity over desperation, you became a mystery, and nothing pulls a man's thoughts like the mystery of a woman who finally chose herself. What most people don't understand is that true power doesn't come from forcing someone to change. It comes from refusing to wait around for them to decide your worth. You didn't change to impress him, you changed to reclaim yourself. You stopped bending, apologizing, explaining, and started evolving. And as you began to glow differently, his memory of you shifted. He doesn't just remember the woman who was always there. He remembers the moment you stopped being there, and that's when he realized what he lost. When you walked away, you didn't lose him. He lost the version of you that was still willing to try. There's something profoundly attractive about a woman who knows what she deserves and isn't afraid to walk away to get it. You became that woman not out of spite, not to get revenge, but because your soul was tired of negotiating with someone who didn't see your light. And now that light has become brighter. It's not burning for him anymore, it's burning for you. And that's what he sees, that's what keeps him thinking. Not the memory of your tears or your pain, but the image of the woman who rose from all of it, smiling like she never needed him to begin with. Letting go wasn't easy, it never is. You had to grieve the dreams, the plans, the laughter, even the intimacy that once made you feel special. But in that grief, you discovered your strength. You learned how to hold yourself through the nights you wanted to text him. You grew through the silence, became wiser in the absence, and more beautiful in the solitude. And now he sees it, not through your updates or your posts, but in the energy that's no longer attached to him. He can feel that you've moved on, and nothing torments a man more than realizing he no longer has a hold on the woman who used to give him everything. This shift isn't about being heartless or unfeeling, it's about clarity. You finally saw the pattern. Giving more never made him step up. Being easy to love didn't make him love you better. Being patient didn't make him ready. And so you stopped trying to prove yourself. You stopped auditioning for a role in someone else's life, and that decision was revolutionary. It told the world and him that you don't chase, you attract, that your presence is earned, not entitled to. That's why he's thinking about you now. Because you've become what every man remembers, but not every man gets back a woman who knows her worth. And here's the irony. The moment you stopped being available was the moment he started paying attention. When you were emotionally invested, he overlooked you. But when you emotionally detached, he started to realize the value you brought to his life. The peace, the love, the loyalty, all the things he took for granted are now magnified in their absence. He can't replace that kind of energy. He might try, but deep down, he knows it's rare. You were rare. And because you had the courage to let go, you've now created the space for something deeper, better, and real, either with him or without him. Most people want transformation without letting go of what's holding them back, but you understood the assignment. You realized that you can't become the woman you're meant to be while clinging to someone who makes you doubt your value. So you chose differently. You broke your own heart to save your soul. You said goodbye to the temporary comfort of familiar pain and walked into the unknown with grace. And as terrifying as that was, it was the most self-loving act you could have ever done. That's why he can't stop thinking about you, because he's still stuck in the story and you've already turned the page. You used to explain yourself over and over, trying to get him to see your side, your heart, your effort. You'd type out long messages hoping that this time maybe he'd understand what you needed, maybe he'd show up, but the more you spoke, the more he pulled back. The more you expressed your feelings, the more you felt dismissed. And eventually, you realized your words weren't falling on deaf ears. They were falling on uninterested ones. That's when something inside of you broke in the best way. You stopped talking. You stopped explaining. You stopped begging. And the silence you gave him, that was louder than anything you'd ever said. There's a unique kind of power in silence, especially when it comes from someone who used to give so much of themselves. You didn't go quiet to manipulate him. You didn't disappear to play games. You did it because your soul was exhausted, because the weight of unreciprocated effort finally became too much to carry. And in that moment of letting go, you found a new kind of voice, the one that speaks through absence. That kind of silence isn't passive. It's not weak. It's strength dressed in stillness. And for the first time, he started to feel what you had felt all along: empty. When a woman stops talking, a man starts listening, not because she's suddenly more interesting, but because he realizes she was valuable all along. Before, your emotions were dismissed as too much. Now he misses them. Before, your affection was taken for granted. Now he craves it. You used to be an open book, and now you're a mystery. And that shift is what's making him spiral. He wonders where you went. He wonders what changed. And deep down, he knows he did. He didn't value the sound of your voice until it was gone. Men don't often realize what they had until the peace you brought turns into the silence of your absence. You weren't just texting him, you were showing up emotionally. You weren't just calling, you were trying to hold space for him. You were consistent, supportive, present, but because you made it look easy, he thought it was endless. He didn't know you were running on empty because love blinded you from your own exhaustion. And then one day you didn't respond, one day you didn't reach out, and that moment wasn't petty, it was sacred. That was the day you reclaimed your peace. In your silence, he's forced to confront a version of you that no longer revolves around him. That's terrifying for someone who was used to being your center. Now he replays conversations you had, searching for signs he missed. He rereads messages, wondering how he didn't see the shift coming. And it hits him you were always clear, always honest. He just wasn't listening. He didn't take your needs seriously until you stopped expressing them. He didn't feel your energy leaving until it was gone. And now that silence, it feels permanent, and that scares him more than anything you could have said. You see, people think power comes from what you say, but it's often what you don't say that changes the dynamic. When you stopped explaining your worth, he had no choice but to reflect on what he lost. That silence became a mirror that showed him every moment he neglected you, every message he ignored, every time he assumed you'd always be there. And while you're outgrowing the version of yourself that tolerated less, he's stuck in the past, stuck wondering why the energy shifted, why the chase began, and why he suddenly misses everything he used to take for granted. Letting go of someone doesn't always mean slamming a door. Sometimes it's a quiet retreat, a soft fading into your own peace. That's what you did. You didn't make a scene. You didn't shout or scream or make a long list of why he lost you. You just stopped showing up where you no longer felt valued. And ironically, that lack of drama made it even more impactful, because now he can't blame you. He can't accuse you of being emotional or overreacting. You gave him nothing but silence, and in that nothing, he's left with everything he never heard until it was too late. Silence forces him to live with the echo of your absence, and that echo grows louder every time he opens his phone and doesn't see your name. Every time he thinks of a memory and realizes he can't recreate that same feeling with anyone else. You were more than your words, you were presence, peace, and power. Now he sits with the reality that someone like you chose to walk away. That's what really lingers, the fact that you could have stayed but didn't, that he could have stepped up but didn't, and now it's not your voice that haunts him, it's your silence, while he's thinking about you, wondering what you're doing, who you're with, and why you're not calling. You're healing, you're unlearning the habit of explaining yourself to someone who never really heard you. You're remembering who you were before you felt you had to fight to be understood, and you're realizing that the love you were trying to give to him, that love belongs to you first. You stopped pouring into a cup with holes in it, and now that your energy has returned to you, you're seeing clearly not just who he was, but who you've become without him. You're stronger, lighter, and finally free. What he can't stop thinking about is the woman who was once emotionally available and now emotionally gone. He underestimated how deep your love was until it dried up. He didn't realize how much life you brought to the connection until it grew silent. Now he's left wondering if you'll ever reach out again, if he'll ever hear from you, feel you, or matter to you the way he once did. But your silence isn't just distance, it's transformation. You didn't go quiet to punish him. You went quiet to protect your peace, and that peace, that's the part he can't forget. There's a powerful shift that happens when a woman stops trying to be chosen and starts choosing herself. You didn't become cold, you became clear. You stopped waiting for his validation, stopped hoping he'd finally realize your worth. You no longer needed him to make you feel loved, seen, or enough, and that energy, that self-contained, grounded confidence is what changed everything. He can't stop thinking about you because you became something he wasn't used to. A woman who didn't make him the center of her universe. You stopped orbiting him. You became the sun in your own life. That's what makes you unforgettable. Men notice when a woman pulls her energy back, not out of anger, but out of evolution. Before, he felt secure knowing he could reach out and you'd respond. Now, that assurance is gone. You're not angry, you're just done, and that scares him more than any confrontation ever could, because a woman who needs closure chases it, but a woman who realizes she doesn't need him anymore, she simply leaves mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That's what you did. You made peace with walking away, and now he's caught in the gravity of a woman who no longer needs his presence to feel complete. What makes you irresistible now isn't how much you cared about him, it's how deeply you care about yourself. He remembers the way you used to light up when he entered the room. He remembers how easily you forgave, how patient you were when he gave you little. But what haunts him now is how quickly that version of you disappeared. You stopped offering love to someone who couldn't hold it, and in doing that, you became rare. You showed him that your love wasn't something he could play with, it was a gift he mishandled. Now that it's gone, he sees it for what it was. You used to respond quickly, adjust your schedule, and be emotionally available on demand. He expected it, got comfortable with it, assumed it was who you'd always be, but the moment you started showing up for yourself first, the dynamic shifted. He started noticing the space between your replies, the lack of urgency, The letting go of him wasn't just a decision to end a relationship, it was the beginning of your rebirth. You thought it would break you, and in many ways it did. But sometimes breaking is exactly what's needed for the light to pour in. Every tear you cried, every moment you questioned your worth was the foundation of your comeback. You stopped trying to fix him, stopped trying to fix what didn't want to be healed. And in that stillness, you found someone even more important than him. You found you, the real you, the version of yourself that doesn't beg for love, but becomes it. That was the transformation he never saw coming. You started doing things for yourself, not for a reaction. You didn't post to make him jealous, you posted because you were proud of how far you'd come. You didn't change your hair or your body or your habits to get his attention. You evolved because it was time. You stopped living in response to his presence or absence. Your world no longer revolved around whether he called, texted, or showed up. You stopped measuring your value by his ability to choose you. And the more you stopped chasing him, the more you started chasing your purpose. That shift, that total emotional reroute, is what makes you unforgettable. Now, every version of you he meets in his memory is different from the one that left. While he thought you'd be the same woman, forever patient, forgiving, waiting, you were quietly becoming someone new, someone wiser, someone more powerful, someone who doesn't settle for temporary affection when she deserves lifelong loyalty. He assumed he had time, he assumed you'd always be there. But what he didn't see was the silent work you were doing behind the scenes, the internal growth, the boundaries being built, the courage being formed. You didn't just walk away, you grew away, and now that distance isn't just physical. It's spiritual, and he feels it. At first, he didn't feel your absence because men rarely notice what's missing until the silence stretches long enough to echo. But over time, he began to realize he couldn't replace the way you made him feel. Not just loved, but safe. You saw parts of him he tried to hide from the world and embraced them anyway. You gave him a soft place to land in a world that demands men stay hard. And he lost that. He lost the softness, the comfort, the depth, all because he didn't know how to hold it. Now, he can't recreate it, and he knows it. You became the woman who no longer checks her phone with anxiety, wondering if he remembered you. Because now, you remember yourself. You replaced the noise with clarity. You began investing in people who poured into you the way you used to pour into him. You gave yourself closure, healing, and forgiveness, all the things you used to beg for. And as you became more whole, more alive, more connected to your own path, he felt the shift. He felt the disconnection, not just from you, but from the version of himself who once had you. That's what he can't stop thinking about, not just losing you, but losing her. He's haunted by the contrast. The version of you he knew always available, always nurturing, has been replaced by someone untouchable. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better. Better at protecting your peace. Better at filtering who gets access to your heart. Better at saying no to people who only know how to take. He didn't expect the woman who once made him a priority to become the woman who now prioritizes herself. And now he's stuck in a memory loop trying to figure out how he let something so powerful, so rare, slip through his fingers. You didn't just leave his life, you leveled up from it. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You started dressing differently, speaking differently, thinking differently. Your energy changed. You walk into rooms with confidence he never thought you'd have without him, and that's what keeps him thinking. Because the truth is, he never thought you'd really let go. He thought you'd move on, but not up. He expected you to find someone else, but not to find yourself. And now you've become someone he can't access, can't predict, can't shake from his thoughts. Letting him go taught you that love isn't supposed to cost your dignity. It's not supposed to feel like waiting, wondering, or worrying. Real love shows up, and once you learned that, you stopped entertaining anything less. You stopped believing in potential and started trusting patterns. You began listening to actions, not promises, and in doing so, you raised your standards not to push love away, but to make space for something real. Something healthy, something that feels like home, not a battlefield. That energy shift is something he never expected from you, and that surprise, that's why he can't let it go. He's stuck not because he can't find another woman he can. But what he can't find is another version of you, the one who loved him deeply, purely, and with full presence. That kind of love is rare. That kind of woman is rare. And now that he's seen what it looks like to lose her, he's trapped in comparison. Every new connection falls short. Every new conversation feels surface level. No one sees him the way you did. No one holds space the way you did. And the worst part, he knows it's too late to get that version of you back. You didn't let him go to prove anything to him. You let go to become someone more aligned with who you were always meant to be. He was a chapter, maybe even a lesson, but not your whole story. And in the process of releasing him, you returned to your power. You stopped trying to be enough for someone who didn't know how to receive love, and you started becoming more than enough for yourself. That transformation is what sticks with him, not your anger, not your sadness, but your evolution, the glow-up that wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, emotional, and undeniable.